The scrapyard moon of Varkos was always cold, always gray, and always loud with the sound of breaking metal. On this world, machines were more important than children, and a hungry child had no value to anyone. That is why the small alien boy, named Kiro, walked slowly between the mountains of scrap with shaking legs. He was starving, weak, and tired, and every breath felt like sand inside his chest. He stopped near a broken supply crate, hoping maybe there was a small piece of food left inside. But the moment he reached for it, 3 older workers saw him. Their faces were hard and angry. They kicked the crate away and pushed Kiro to the ground. One of them laughed and said, "Get lost, little rat. This food is not for garbage like you." Kiro tried to stand, but his body was too weak. His small arms shook as he pushed against the dirt. His stomach growled loudly. The workers only laughed more. One of them kicked him again. Kiro curled up, covering his head, waiting for the pain, waiting for someone to stop, but no one ever did on this cruel moon. Then something changed. A loud metallic door slammed open. Everyone turned their heads. A human mechanic stepped out from his workshop. His name was Evan Holt. He wore a dirty uniform, had tired brown eyes, and carried a small lunch pack in his hand. Evan had worked 12 long hours fixing engines, and this meal was all he had left for the night. He was exhausted, but when he saw the workers surrounding the tiny alien boy, he froze on the spot. His face changed slowly, from tired to serious. From serious to angry, he walked forward with heavy steps, each one echoing across the scrapyard. "What are you doing?" Evan asked in a calm but sharp voice. The workers smirked and stepped aside. "Just teaching this stray to stay away from our food," one of them replied. Evan ignored their words and knelt beside Kiro. The boy flinched and covered his face, whispering, "Please, don't hit me. I'm sorry." His voice was so soft that it almost broke. Evan's heart tightened. He put his hand on Kiro's trembling shoulder. "Hey, it's okay. I'm not here to hurt you," he said gently. The boy slowly looked up. His eyes were big, scared, and full of hunger. Dirt covered his cheeks, and his breathing was fast and shaky. Evan didn't understand why, but something inside him refused to walk away. He opened his lunch pack, his last meal, and placed it in the boy's hands. Kiro stared at the food with disbelief. His lips parted slightly, like he couldn't believe it was real. Then he ate quickly, almost desperate, crumbs falling. On the ground, Evan watched quietly, without speaking, without moving. He knew helping a homeless alien child in this sector was not allowed, but his heart didn't care about the rules. Suddenly, loud alarms blared across the scrapyard. A robotic voice spoke from the speakers. "Warning, unauthorized contact detected. Any citizen interacting with sector orphans will be punished." The workers stepped back in shock. People inside the scrapyard started whispering and pointing. Everyone knew what sector orphans meant. Everyone except Evan. He stood up slowly, lifting the boy in his arms. Kiro was light, too light, like he hadn't eaten properly for weeks. Evan looked around, and for a moment, the whole scrapyard fell silent. Everyone's eyes were watching him. The human mechanic carrying a forbidden alien child. Kiro held onto Evan's shirt tightly, his small fingers shaking. "Please, don't leave me outside again," he whispered. Evan took a deep breath. He understood nothing, yet he knew one thing clearly. He couldn't leave the boy here. As he walked back toward his workshop, the workers called after him. "You're crazy, Evan. Do you know what they'll do to you for helping him?" Evan didn't answer. He only looked at Kiro's tired face. "No child deserves to be treated like this," he said softly. Just then, Kiro's skin glowed faintly with a soft blue light. It was weak but clear enough that Evan noticed. The boy quickly hid his hands under Evan's arm, afraid someone else saw it. Evan's eyes widened. That was not normal. Before he could ask anything, a black drone appeared in the sky, scanning the scrapyard with red lights, searching for subject K-37. It announced. Kiro gasped and buried his face in Evan's chest. Trembling harder, Evan held him tighter. protecting him from the drone's view. A chill ran down Evan's spine. Why was a starving boy being hunted like a criminal? And what was Subject K-37? The hook ends with heavy suspense. Evan realizes that by sharing his last meal, he has stepped into something dangerous, something big, something he cannot escape now. Evan pushed the workshop door closed behind him, breathing hard as the warning alarms echoed outside. Inside the dim workshop, the smell of oil and metal filled the air. Kiro stayed in Evan's arms, shaking as if the ground itself was dangerous. Evan placed him gently on a small repair bench and knelt down so their eyes were level. The boy's breathing was fast and broken, and the faint blue glow that Evan saw earlier flickered under his skin like hidden light trying to escape. Evan spoke softly. "You're safe here. No drones, no bullies, no one to hurt you." But Kiro did not relax. Instead, he held his arms close to his chest as if he was trying to stop the glow from showing. Evan noticed the metal tag tied around Kiro's neck. It looked old, scratched, but had numbers carved deeply into it. K-37, Evan whispered as he touched the tag gently. The boy flinched. "Please don't take it off," he begged. His voice so small it barely existed. Evan nodded and stepped back. He didn't understand what Kiro was afraid of, but he could see the terror in the child's eyes clearly. A loud humming sound suddenly came from outside. The drone was flying lower now. Scanning closer to the workshop, Kiro froze. "There. Looking for me," he whispered. "They always look for me." Evan moved to the window and peeked outside. The drone's red scanning line swept across the yard like a hungry eye searching for prey. Evan felt his chest tighten. He knew hiding Kiro could get him arrested, or worse. But leaving the boy outside was not something his heart could accept. He walked back to Kiro and asked, "Why are they after you? Did you run away from somewhere?" Kiro lowered his head, his small fingers digging into the bench's edge. "I escaped," he whispered. "The handlers. They said I belonged to them." Evan frowned. "Handlers? What handlers? Who are they?" The boy didn't answer, his eyes filled with fear. And suddenly the lights in the workshop flickered. Evan froze and looked up at the ceiling. The light bulbs buzzed, dimmed, then brightened again on their own. Before Evan could check the wiring, he noticed the glow under Kiro's skin growing. Brighter. Blue veins of light pulsed across the boy's arms like tiny rivers of energy moving beneath his skin. Kiro gasped and covered his hands, trying to hide it. "Please don't be scared," he whispered. "I can't control it when I'm afraid." Evan stepped closer, stunned but calm. "You're glowing. How are you doing that?" Kiro shook his head quickly. "I don't know. It just happens. The handlers wanted it. They tested me every day. They said the energy inside me could power machines, maybe whole cities. They wanted to keep me forever." Evan felt a chill crawl up his spine. The child wasn't lying. The glow was real. The flickering lights were real. And the fear was real. Evan sat quietly next to him. "You're not a machine, Kiro," he said gently. "You're a child. You're not something to be owned." The boy bit his lip, tears filling his eyes. "That's not what they said," he whispered. "They said I was made for them. They said I was a tool." Evan clenched his jaw, anger rising inside him. He had seen workers treated badly. He had seen machines abused. But a child being treated like a power source made his heart burn with fury. Kiro's stomach growled again, reminding Evan that the boy's problems were bigger than just fear. Evan opened a small storage cabinet and pulled out a thermal blanket. He wrapped it gently around Kiro's shoulders. "You can stay here tonight," Evan said quietly. "No one will touch you, I promise." Kiro looked up slowly. "Why are you helping me?" Evan didn't have a perfect answer, but he said the only thing that felt true. "Because someone should." Just then, a soft beeping sound came from the door. Evan's heart jumped. He rushed to the security screen. A small red light blinked. Someone was scanning his door from outside. He turned off the inside lights and whispered, "Hide." He opened a panel under the floor and lifted Kiro into the small crawl space. "Stay quiet," Evan whispered, closing the panel just as the security door rattled. Someone outside called out, "Workshop 17, open up, mandatory inspection." Evan wiped his hands on his shirt, trying to look calm as he opened the door a few inches. A tall officer stood there with a clipboard and a scanning device. "We have reports of unauthorized activity in this sector. Have you seen anything unusual?" Evan met the officer's cold eyes. "No, sir, just engines and broken metal like always." The officer's scanner beeped loudly. Evan felt sweat trickle down his neck. The officer narrowed his eyes, stepped forward, and looked around the workshop carefully for a tense moment. He stood inches away from the hidden floor panel. Kiro held his breath in the dark space below. The officer turned sharply and looked at Evan again. "If you see the fugitive boy, report it immediately." Evan nodded slowly. "Of course." The officer finally left. The door closed. Evan locked it quickly and opened the floor panel. Kiro crawled out. Tears in his eyes, Evan pulled him into a gentle hug. "You're safe with me," he whispered, but deep inside, Evan knew that this was only the beginning. This child carried a dangerous secret, and now that secret was inside his workshop and his life. The next morning came with a silent gray sky over the scrapyard moon, but the silence did not last long. Evan was tightening bolts on a broken engine when a deep rumble shook the ground. At first he thought it was another cargo hauler landing. But then the rumble grew louder, heavier, sharper. Kiro, who had been sitting quietly with a blanket around him, stood up suddenly. His eyes widened with fear. "They're here," he whispered. Evan turned quickly and looked out the workshop window. 3 black ships were descending from the sky, their metal wings cutting through the cold air like knives. These were not police drones or local guards. They were elite hunter ships, the kind used only for dangerous missions. The ships landed in the main yard, sending waves of dust and metal scraps flying everywhere. Workers began running in panic, hiding behind piles of broken engines. Evan grabbed Kiro's hand. "We need to stay hidden," he said, trying to keep his voice steady even though his heart pounded loudly inside his chest. Kiro's small fingers trembled. "They always find me," he said. "They can smell the energy inside me." Evan knelt down and held Kiro's shoulders. "Gently. Not this time," he said firmly. But even he wasn't sure how they could escape hunters trained to track anything. Heavy footsteps echoed across the scrapyard as armored soldiers stepped out of the ships. Their armor was dark, almost black, with glowing red lines running across their helmets, making them look like machines rather than living beings. The leader stepped forward, a tall alien with sharp features and a cold, expressionless face. He raised a device in his hand and spoke with a voice that echoed across the metal yard. "We are searching for subject K-37. Anyone who has seen the child must report immediately. Failure to comply will result in punishment." Kiro hid behind Evan's leg, shaking violently. Evan pulled him back inside and locked the door. "Stay quiet," he whispered. The hunters spread out quickly, scanning every corner, every machine, every shadow. A soldier pointed a scanner toward the workshop, and Evan felt panic rise in his throat. He grabbed Kiro and rushed toward the back, pushing aside tools and opening a hidden compartment behind a stack of engine parts. "Inside now," Evan whispered. Kiro crawled into the small space, hugging his knees tightly. Evan covered the compartment with metal sheets and wiped his hands fast, pretending to be working as the door suddenly banged loudly. "Workshop 17, a soldier commanded. "Open immediately." Evan inhaled deeply and opened the door slowly, trying to look annoyed rather than afraid. "What now?" he asked, wiping fake sweat from his forehead. The soldier raised his scanner. "We detected a high-energy signature nearby. A child was seen in this area last night." Evan shrugged. "Only engines here, no children." The soldier walked inside without permission, scanning every corner. Every beep from the scanner made Evan's stomach twist with fear. The soldier stopped near the engine pile hiding Kiro. He looked at it suspiciously. His finger hovered over the scanning button. Kiro, hidden under the metal sheets, held his breath until his chest hurt. Evan forced himself to stay calm. "If you break my engines, the boss will dock your pay," he said in a tired voice. The soldier stared at him through the red glow of his helmet, then lowered the scanner and stepped back. "If you see the boy, report," he said. Evan nodded casually, even though his heart was racing faster than a plasma drill. The soldiers moved on to the next workshop, and Evan quickly closed his door again. He opened the hidden compartment. Kiro crawled out, breathing fast, tears rolling silently down his cheeks. "You saved me again," he said. Evan placed a hand on his head. "You're safe for now," he said, "but staying here won't work. They will search every corner soon." Kiro sat on the floor, pulling the blanket tighter around himself. "They won't stop. The handlers told me I belonged to them. They said the energy inside me could change worlds." Evan sat down beside him. "Then they're scared of you," he said. "People only chase what they fear or want to control." Kiro looked at him with unsure eyes. "Do you fear me?" he asked softly. Evan shook his head. "I fear for you, not of you," he said gently. The workshop lights flickered again, but this time the glow from Kiro's skin was brighter, pulsing softly like a heartbeat. Evan realized something strange. Whenever Kiro felt safe near him, the glow became cleaner, steadier, almost like his emotions controlled the energy inside him. Suddenly, a loud announcement echoed from the hunter's speakers. "We have detected a rising power surge in the scrapyard. All units converge on the north sector." Evan stood up quickly. His workshop was in the north sector. They were coming. And this time they wouldn't leave without searching every inch. Evan grabbed a small tool bag and pulled Kiro close. "We're leaving," he said, "now before they lock down the whole yard." Kiro swallowed hard but nodded, trusting Evan completely. Evan opened a back exit that few workers knew about, a narrow metal tunnel that led behind the scrap mountains. They slipped inside just as the hunters began marching toward the workshop in tight formation. As they crawled through the narrow tunnel, Kiro whispered, "Why do you keep helping me?" Evan didn't stop moving, but he answered softly, "Because no child should run from the whole galaxy alone." Kiro's glow brightened a little at those words, and for the first time, a small spark of hope warmed his eyes. But behind them, the hunters discovered Evan's workshop, and the sound of metal crashing echoed through the yard. The chase had officially begun. Evan and Kiro crawled out of the narrow tunnel into a quiet part of the scrapyard where old engines had been dumped in huge piles. The air smelled like rust and cold dust. Kiro held Evan's hand tightly as they moved between the tall metal mountains, every step careful, every sound dangerous. Evan kept looking over his shoulder, expecting to see hunters rising from the smoke at any second. "We need a safe place," he whispered. Kiro nodded, but his fear made the blue glow beneath his skin flicker softly like fading light. "They're close," he whispered back. Evan noticed the boy's eyes scanning the ground nervously. "How do you know?" he asked quietly. Kiro swallowed. "I can feel their machines. The energy inside them pushes against the energy inside me." Evan's eyes widened slightly. "You can sense machines?" he asked. Kiro nodded slowly. "Since I was small. I don't know how, it just happens." They continued forward until they reached Evan's old storage shed, a place he rarely used anymore because it was full of half-broken engines and rusted tools. "We'll hide here for a moment," Evan said gently. He opened the door and guided Kiro inside, then shut it quickly and locked it from inside. The shed was dark, lit only by thin cracks of daylight peeking through the metal walls. Kiro stepped closer to Evan. "They will find us," he whispered. "They always do." Evan knelt down and looked him in the eyes. "Listen to me. I won't let them take you. I don't care how many hunters they send." The boy stared at him with trembling eyes. "Why?" he asked. "Why do you care so much?" "I'm not even your kind." Evan gave a small, tired smile. "Kindness doesn't need matching skin," he said. and no child should be treated like a tool. Kiro opened his mouth to speak but suddenly froze. A loud humming sound shook the shed. Soldiers were scanning the scrapyard again. Red lights flickered through the cracks in the walls. Evan held Kiro close. "Stay behind the engine block," he whispered. They crouched behind an old power core, hoping the hunters would pass by. Evan peeked through a crack and saw the soldiers moving like shadows, their scanners lighting the ground in sharp red circles. One soldier stopped near the shed. Kiro's breathing quickened, and suddenly the lights inside the shed flickered again. Evan glanced down and saw the glow under Kiro's skin growing brighter. "Kiro," he whispered urgently. "You have to stay calm. You're glowing." Kiro shook his head helplessly. "I can't stop it. When I'm scared it grows. When I'm safe, it listens." Evan placed both hands on Kiro's shoulders and spoke softly but firmly. "Look at me. You are safe right now. I'm here. You're not alone." Kiro stared into Evan's steady eyes, and slowly the glow softened. It didn't disappear, but it became smoother, more controlled. The lights above stopped flickering. Outside, the soldier hesitated, then turned away and continued scanning further down the yard. Evan let out a slow breath. "That was close," he whispered. But Kiro was staring at his own hands. "I felt it," he said softly. "When you talked to me, the energy listened." Evan frowned gently. "What do you mean?" Kiro shook his head, trying to understand his own words. "It's like the energy inside me is alive, like it reacts to feelings. When I'm scared, it bursts. When I feel safe, it calms down." Evan leaned back slowly. "Then maybe your power isn't a weapon like they claim," he said. "Maybe it's something different, something connected to your emotions." Before Kiro could respond, a sudden explosion echoed across the scrapyard. The shed walls shook, dust falling from the ceiling. Kiro grabbed Evan's arm tightly. "They're breaking through the workshops." Evan stood up quickly. "We can't stay here." He grabbed his tool bag, pulled out a small portable energy booster, and pressed it into Kiro's hands. "Touch this," he said. Kiro looked confused but did as told. The moment his fingers touched the metal, the dead device sparked, then fully powered up, glowing bright blue. Evan stared in disbelief. "You really can power machines?" Kiro dropped the device in fear. "That's why they want me," he whispered. "They said I could give life to dead worlds, machines, anything." Evan didn't reply. His mind was racing. What kind of child could restart a dead machine with a touch? The hunters grew closer, their heavy boots thundering like drums of war. Evan opened the back wall of the shed, revealing a small exit he had cut years ago. "Come on," he whispered. "We're heading to the outskirts." Kiro followed, still wrapped in the blanket. Evan lifted him over a pile of metal and helped him climb out into the open field. The sky above them was darkening as clouds of metal dust rose into the wind. Kiro's glow pulsed softly. "Evan," he whispered, "I don't want you to get hurt because of me." Evan shook his head and lifted the boy into his arms. "You didn't choose this life, Kiro," he said gently, "but I choose to help you." The boy laid his head on Evan's shoulder, and for a moment, despite the danger all around them, he felt safe. But far behind them, the hunters spread out, scanning the ground again. Their commander raised his helmet toward the sky. "The surge came from this direction," he said coldly. "Find the child." And as Evan carried Kiro toward the distant scrap mountains, the boy's faint blue glow lit the path in front of them like a small fragile star fighting against a storm. Evan and Kiro moved carefully through the scrapyard's outer zone, a place filled with tall broken towers of metal and forgotten machines. The wind howled softly through the gaps, making sharp whistles that sounded like distant screams. Kiro held Evan's hand tightly, his small fingers trembling. "Is there anyone we can trust?" he whispered. Evan didn't answer right away. He scanned the area with tired, worried eyes. "Maybe," he said quietly, "but we must be careful, very careful." As they walked deeper into the piles of scrap, Evan spotted an old maintenance Bunker, a place he once used for emergency repairs. We'll hide here for a while, he said gently, but inside the bunker, the air felt heavy, and something inside Evan's heart pressed hard. A warning he couldn't explain. Kiro sat on a metal crate, pulling the blanket closer around his shoulders. Will the hunters find us? He asked softly. Evan knelt down and brushed dust from Kiro's hair. Not if we stay quiet, he said, trying to sound confident even though his nerves were shaking. Suddenly the bunker door opened with a loud metal creak. Evan jumped up, ready to protect Kiro, but then he relaxed a little when he recognized the person entering. It was Rogan, one of Evan's co-workers. A big man with a loud voice and a soft laugh. Someone Evan had known for years. Evan? Rogan said, I've been looking all over for you. Evan stepped forward slowly. Rogan, this isn't a good time. Rogan walked in further, looking around suspiciously. Then his eyes stopped on the small figure sitting on the crate. So the rumor was true, he said in a low, heavy voice. You really are hiding the alien boy. Kiro pulled the blanket over his face. Evan stepped protectively in front of him. Rogan, listen to me, Evan said firmly. He's just a child. He needs help. The hunters will kill him. Rogan's face twisted. Evan, they're offering money, huge money. Enough to get off this dead moon forever. Evan felt the blood drain from his face. You didn't, he whispered. Rogan didn't meet his eyes. Instead, he reached slowly into his pocket and pulled out a small communicator. I'm sorry, Evan, he said, but this is my chance. I called them. Kiro gasped, his glow flaring bright under the blanket. Evan stepped back in disbelief. Rogan, you betrayed us? He whispered. Rogan's eyes softened for a moment. It's not personal, he said. Survival comes first. Evan clenched his fists. Survival doesn't mean selling children. He snapped. Rogan took a step forward. Move aside. Evan, I don't want to fight you. Evan didn't move. Instead, he reached for a metal pipe lying on the floor. Rogan shook his head sadly. You're making this hard, he said. They'll be here any second. Outside, heavy footsteps echoed through the metal corridors. The hunters were approaching fast. Kiro trembled. Evan, he whispered. Evan turned, his eyes full of fire. Stay behind me, no matter what. Rogan lunged forward, grabbing Evan's arm. The two men crashed into a pile of tools, metal clanging loudly. Rogan was stronger, but Evan was faster fueled by fear and anger. He struck Rogan in the knee, forcing him down. Rogan groaned but punched Evan hard in the ribs. Evan fell back against the wall, breath knocked out of him. Evan, stop, Rogan shouted. You can't fight the hunters. Evan wiped blood from his lip and stood again. Maybe not, he said, but I can fight you. He rushed forward. But before either man could strike again, the bunker door burst open and hunters stormed inside, their glowing helmets casting sharp red light across the floor. Subject: K-37 detected. The commander's voice boomed. Kiro froze, his glow flickering wildly. Rogan raised his hands. I brought him to you, he said quickly. I did what you asked. The commander barely glanced at him. Instead, he pointed toward Kiro. Secure the asset, he ordered. Eliminate resistance. Two soldiers grabbed Evan from behind, slamming him onto the metal floor. Kiro screamed. Evan! His glow shot upward like a flash of lightning, lights flickering across the bunker. For a moment the soldiers hesitated, shocked by the sudden energy surge. But then they moved faster, stronger. One soldier grabbed Kiro by the arm roughly. Kiro cried out in pain. Evan fought desperately, kicking and struggling. Let him go, he roared. The commander stepped forward and hit Evan in the back of the head with a heavy baton. Evan collapsed, vision blurring. But even on the ground he reached out toward Kiro, fingers shaking, voice breaking. Don't touch him. Kiro was pulled away, dragged toward the open door, his small hands reaching back for Evan, tears streaming down his face. Evan! He screamed again. The commander turned coldly. Dispose of the human, he ordered. Rogan's eyes widened. "But you said," he began. The commander raised his arm and struck Rogan across the chest with a blast that sent him crashing into the wall. Rogan collapsed, gasping, realizing too late that betrayal had earned him nothing. Evan lay on the floor, dizzy, vision fading, but he forced himself to look at Kiro one more time. The boy's glowing eyes met his, filled with terror and heartbreak. "I'll come back for you," Evan whispered weakly. "I promise." The hunters dragged Kiro outside, their ships roaring to life, the ground shaking beneath them, and as the bunker grew silent again, Evan's fingers curled tightly into the dust, fury burning inside him like fire waiting to explode. They had taken the boy he saved, the boy who trusted him. Now nothing would stop him from getting Kiro back, not even the entire galaxy. Evan woke slowly, his head pounding, the cold metal floor pressing against his cheek. For a moment he didn't remember where he was. Then Kiro's scream echoed in his mind, sharp and painful like a blade. He pushed himself up, breathing hard, his ribs aching from the soldiers' blows. The bunker was silent now, dust drifting through the air. Rogan lay slumped against the mud wall, groaning weakly. Evan ignored him at first, his mind racing. "Kiro. They took Kiro," he whispered, fury tightening his chest. He staggered to his feet and rushed outside, the wind hitting his face sharply. In the distance he saw the hunter convoy moving across the gray scrapyard plains, 3 armored transports and 2 escort vehicles, their red lights blinking like angry eyes. Evan's jaw clenched. "I'm coming for you," he whispered. He sprinted back into the bunker and grabbed his tool bag, stuffing inside anything he could use, cutting lasers, engine coils, old wires, and a portable booster. As he turned to leave, Rogan coughed weakly. "Evan, I didn't think they'd kill me too." Evan stared at him with cold, tired eyes. "You sold out a child," he said sharply. "That's something you don't come back from." Rogan lowered his gaze. "Help me up." "Please," he whispered. Evan looked at him for a long second, anger burning inside him. But then he sighed and pulled Rogan to his feet. "You know where they're taking him?" Evan demanded. Rogan nodded shakily. "Sector 9. The launch bay. They'll move him off-world." Evan didn't thank him. He simply turned and ran. The scrapyard stretched far and wide like a dead metal desert. Evan's lungs burned as he sprinted through the jagged paths, climbing over broken engines and sliding down hills of rusted scraps. In the distance, the convoy's engines roared, growing louder as they approached the launch bay. Evan knew he needed speed. He reached an old vehicle lot, full of abandoned land cruisers, most broken, some missing parts. But one, a heavy desert cruiser, still had a working frame. Evan jumped inside and ripped open the engine casing. Wires dangled, circuits dead. He grabbed the portable booster from his bag. "Come on. Please work," he whispered. He touched the booster to the engine coil. Sparks exploded. The engine coughed, then roared to life. Evan slammed the door shut and hit the accelerator. The cruiser shot forward, bouncing wildly over the uneven ground. The wind whipped against Evan's face as the convoy came into view. Soldiers rode on top of the vehicles, scanning the area. Kiro was inside the middle transport. Evan felt a surge of determination rush through him. He tightened his grip on the steering wheel. "Hold on, kid," he whispered. "I'm coming." He drove faster, pushing the cruiser to its limit. The convoy turned sharply toward the launch bay gate. Evan swerved behind a pile of scrap, then cut across the open ground. Soldiers spotted him instantly. "Unidentified vehicle," one shouted. Red lasers fired past Evan's window. He ducked and swerved sharply, the cruiser skidding through the dust. Evan grabbed an old engine coil bomb he had built days ago for work, not for war, but today it would serve. He threw it at the nearest escort vehicle. It exploded under the wheels, flipping the vehicle in a burst of sparks and metal. Soldiers tumbled to the ground as Evan sped closer inside the transport. Kiro pressed his face to the metal bars of his cage, his eyes glowing faintly. "Evan, please come," he whispered with trembling lips. His fear made the energy inside him pulse harder, making the lights in the transport flicker. The commander noticed and hit a button on his wrist device. Increase the dampeners. The subject is unstable. Kiro cried out as the cage vibrated, energy fields trying to drain his power. Evan rammed his cruiser into the side of the transport, the impact shaking everything. Soldiers fell, shouting orders. The convoy swerved, metal screeching loudly. Evan jumped out of the cruiser before it fully stopped, charging directly at the transport. A soldier rushed at him with a shock baton. Evan ducked and swung a wrench straight into the soldier's helmet, knocking him down. Another soldier aimed a rifle. Evan rolled behind a crate, grabbed a loose cable, and threw it toward exposed circuitry. Sparks blasted out, disabling the rifle. Evan rushed forward, climbed onto the transport, and tore open a maintenance panel. Come on, come on," he muttered, pulling wires apart. The transport's power flickered, then dropped. The door hissed as locks released. Kiro reached his small hands to the cage bars. Evan grabbed the cage door and yanked hard. It wouldn't open. He pulled tools from his bag, cutting through the metal lock. A soldier jumped onto the transport roof behind him. Evan didn't look. He simply kicked backward, knocking the soldier off the edge. Sparks flew as the final lock snapped. Evan swung the cage door open. Kiro threw his arms around him, tears falling onto Evan's uniform. "I knew you'd come," he whispered. Evan lifted him up quickly. "We're not safe yet," he said. More soldiers were surrounding the transport now, rifles pointing. The commander stepped forward. "Give us the subject or die," he said coldly. Evan pulled Kiro close. "Not a chance," he muttered suddenly. Kiro's glow exploded outward, brighter than ever, not from fear, but from hope. A wave of blue energy burst from his body, slamming into the ground, knocking soldiers backward like leaves in a storm. Lights shattered, engines hummed wildly. Evan shielded his eyes. When the glow faded, the convoy was silent. The soldiers. Stunned, Evan looked at Kiro with awe. "You saved us," he whispered. Kiro held his hand tightly. "You saved me first," he said softly. Evan carried Kiro away from the smoking convoy, dust rising around them like fog. They had escaped, for now. But the real battle was still ahead, and both of them knew it. Together they ran toward the horizon, ready for whatever came next. Evan and Kiro ran across the silent metal plains, the smoke of the destroyed convoy rising behind them like a dark storm cloud. Evan's breathing was heavy, his ribs aching from the fight. But he never slowed down. Kiro clung to him tightly, his small glowing hands gripping Evan's shirt as if letting go meant losing everything. The sky above them darkened as thick gray clouds gathered, thunder rolling across the scrapyard moon. It felt as if the world itself knew something big was coming. Evan finally stopped near an abandoned factory at the far edge of the yard, the giant structure towering like a broken skeleton against the sky. "We'll hide here," Evan said quietly, trying to mask the fear growing inside him. Inside the factory, the air was cold and filled with dust, broken machines lying like fallen giants across the floor. Kiro sat on a crate, shivering. "They won't stop," he whispered. "They will keep coming." Evan knelt in front of him, gently holding his shoulders. "Then we will keep running," he said, "until I can figure out how to protect you for good." Kiro's blue glow flickered weakly. "I'm scared," he said softly. Evan brushed his hair aside. "I know," he whispered, "but I won't leave you, not now, not ever." Before Kiro could answer, the ground outside shook violently. A powerful engine roared, louder than anything they had heard before. Evan's heart dropped. He rushed to a broken window and looked outside. A huge black warship was descending, far larger than the Hunter transports, its wings spread wide, casting a long shadow over the factory. Soldiers lined the sides, armed with heavy rifles, but at the front stood someone different. A tall alien commander wearing silver armor and a flowing black cape. His presence alone made the air feel colder. "It's him," Kiro whispered shakily. "The one they call High Commander Varkel." Evan clenched his fists. "He's the one in charge?" he asked. Kiro nodded with trembling lips. "He's the one who gave the order to keep me locked in the facility. He said I wasn't a child. He said I was a living power core." Evan's stomach twisted in anger. "You're not a tool." He said sharply, "You're a person." The warship's ramp lowered with a hiss. The commander stepped onto the ground, his cape dragging across the dirt. "Subject K-37, he announced loudly, his voice echoing through the factory walls. "You cannot run from destiny." Evan stepped forward, placing himself between the commander and Kiro. "He's not going with you," Evan said, voice steady. Despite his fear, the commander tilted his head slightly, studying Evan with cold interest. "A human mechanic," he said slowly, "risking his life for a defective experiment." Evan's jaw tightened. "He's not an experiment," he snapped. "He's just a kid." The commander's eyes narrowed, glowing faintly red under his helmet. "You do not understand," he said. "The energy inside the child is rare, powerful, able to rebuild dying worlds. The galaxy needs him." Evan stepped closer, anger burning. "The galaxy doesn't get to steal a child just because it's convenient," he said sharply. Soldiers raised their weapons, aiming at Evan's chest. Kiro gasped and grabbed Evan's arm. The commander lifted a hand and the soldiers froze. "Human," he said. "You cannot win. You cannot protect him forever." Evan didn't back away. "Maybe not," he said, "but I can protect him right now." Suddenly Kiro stepped forward, his glow brightening. "Stop," he whispered. Evan turned quickly. "Kiro, stay back." But the boy shook his head slowly. "I don't want anyone else to get hurt," he said. "I don't want them to hurt you because of me." The commander smiled coldly. "Wise," he said. "Come with me in the human lives." Kiro's eyes trembled with tears, but then he looked at Evan, and something changed. The fear in his eyes softened, replaced by determination. He took Evan's hand, squeezing it tightly. "I choose my own life," he whispered, "and I choose family." A sudden blast of blue energy burst from Kiro's body, brighter than anything Evan had seen before. The entire factory shook, machines rattling, windows shattering into dust. The commander staggered back as the energy hit the ground like a wave of light. Soldiers fell to their knees, struggling to breathe against the force. Evan shielded his face, unable to see anything except glowing blue light all around him. Kiro lifted his small hands, tears streaming but his voice steady. "I'm not your tool," he cried. "I'm not your experiment. I will not be your power," the commander roared, trying to stand, but the energy was too strong. His warship's engines flickered wildly, then shut down completely, metal groaning under the force. When the light finally faded, the ground was cracked, the warship disabled, and the soldiers unconscious. Only the commander remained barely standing. His armor cracked and sparking. He stared at Kiro with fear, real fear. You don't understand the danger of your own power," he said weakly. Kiro stepped closer. "I understand enough," he whispered, "and I choose to live free." The commander collapsed to his knees, defeated. Evan ran to Kiro and lifted him into his arms, holding him tightly. "You did it," he whispered. "You saved us." Kiro buried his face in Evan's shoulder, exhausted. "I didn't want to hurt anyone," he whispered. "I just wanted to stay with you." Evan carried him out of the factory as the wind grew softer and the sky slowly lightened. "You're safe now," he said gently, "and you're not alone anymore." As they walked away from the ruined warship, the first rays of light broke through the clouds, shining softly on the boy's faint blue glow, and together they stepped into a new beginning, not as a fugitive and a mechanic, but as a family the galaxy would one day speak about in awe.